Thanks for joining us. I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, for the first time, we're hearing from the young couple who lost both their newborn baby and their parents in that terrifying crash along the 401 near Whitby. Olivia Bowden has more on the emotional statement they've released and the many questions that still remain.
Oh my God!
A U-Haul barrels down the 401, going the wrong way, and seconds later bursts into flames after crashing into multiple other vehicles. 33-year-old Gulkanaf Manavanan survived alongside his wife, but his parents and the couple's 3-month-old son were killed. In a statement released Sunday, he says, "We are at a complete loss of words to describe the agony and vacuum in our hearts, knowing we can never hold our child, Aditya Vivan, who gave us so many precious memories in such a short time, in our hands again. His small toys and clothes remain spread around our home, and we have no courage in us to even enter our home, which is filled with our only son's memories." And in speaking about his parents, he says, "My father, who had recently retired at age 60, was overjoyed with the opportunity to spend time with his grandson. He affectionately referred to this time as the year of grandparents' fun. My mother, aged 55, was eagerly anticipating every moment with her son and grandson, planning to make their stay all about her grandchild."
3 individuals from a civilian vehicle were also pronounced deceased at the scene.
While the SIU continues to investigate, many are questioning how this could even happen. A 2022 study conducted for the RCMP found that 77 people died in police pursuits over a 10-year period in Canada, ending in 2019.
The wrong way on the freeway is, you're just signing a death warrant.
Jeffrey Alpert specializes in high-risk police activities. He says a chase should only happen to stop a violent crime.
This is the kind of training and this is the kind of policy that the officers should have understood.
In his statement, Gulkanath, the father, thanked the community for their outpouring of support. Services for his parents will be held Monday in Toronto and for his infant son, Wednesday in Markham. Olivia Bowden, CBC News, Toronto.
Meantime, another crash where a vehicle was driving the wrong way on the 401 has killed one person and left another fighting for their life.
At approximately 3:30 a.m., members of the Ontario Provincial Police Mississauga Detachment responded to a fatal collision, Highway 401, eastbound lanes, Guelph Line, City of Milton.
People around the world are marking International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Canada's Prime Minister visiting Toronto's Holocaust Museum earlier today for Yom HaShoah. In a statement, Justin Trudeau highlighted the $90 million set aside in the recent budget to combat anti-Semitism and preserve Holocaust remembrance in Canada. Trudeau said Jewish Canadians deserve to live their lives openly without intimidation or fear. Also in Toronto at the Holocaust Memorial Site, a group gathered to rally against anti-Semitism.
I'm here today because I find that campus administration and our elected officials are not doing enough right now to combat the rise of anti-Semitism, specifically on our campuses, and they're not treating it as the threat that it really is to us Jewish students, which is why I'm here today to advocate for my McMaster peers, but also just universities across Canada.
The event was organized by the group Canadian Women Against Anti-Semitism. Students from McMaster, Western, and the University of Windsor spoke about their experiences on campus and the encampments at universities across Canada and the U.S. The pro-Palestinian encampment at the University of Toronto is now in its 4th day. Supporters of Israel setting up a counter-protest at one point today. Security in neon jackets forming a line between the two groups. The pro-Palestinian demonstrators are calling for the school to divest assets that support Israel. Since they set up, more than 3,100 U of T alumni have signed a letter in support of the students. Meantime, on campuses in the U.S., some pro-Palestinian encampments are now cleared out. The weekend also marked by violence. Chris Glover is in Washington and has our story.
On college campuses from Chicago to Austin, Texas, protesters digging in. But at the University of Southern California, the remnants of a pro-Palestinian encampment now being tossed in the trash. Before sunrise, police moved in. Students say they were bracing for the crackdown.
I think it definitely felt like inevitability, and that's why we were here all night.
The university confirming demonstrators left peacefully with no arrests. But violence at the University of Virginia, police in riot gear spraying protesters. At least 25 people arrested as officers cleared that encampment. Meanwhile, unrest at the University of Michigan extending into this weekend's graduation. Dozens disrupting the ceremony before walking out.
And if you could please draw your attention back to the podium.
Derailing the speech of the U.S. Secretary of the Navy and enraging some fellow classmates.
Get them out of here. Ruining our graduation.
While in Toledo, Ohio, a protest by way of a speech.
Because we, the people, are funding these horrors with our tax dollars.
The campus encampments are reminiscent of the ones against South African apartheid in the 80s, this history professor argues.
And those gradually built up power and speed over the course of several years and were successful at many campuses, leading to some of the reforms which led to the collapse of the apartheid government.
Yet at UCLA, where a lot of that momentum picked up steam, tightened security and a newly created Office of Campus Safety, highlighting the difficult time college administrators are having preventing campus protests from getting out of control. Chris Glover, CBC News, Washington.
Meantime, the latest effort to negotiate a Gaza ceasefire appears to have fallen apart. Talks in Cairo have ended. Hamas still demands a ceasefire that is permanent, and Israel remains adamant it will only accept a temporary truce. Even as talks were in progress, Israeli warplanes struck across Gaza. 29 people were killed. Hamas launched rockets into Israel, leaving 3 soldiers dead. Israel is now suggesting the long-promised offensive on Rafah will soon begin. Hundreds of thousands of people have sought refuge there from the war. The small area is currently home to more than 1 million people. Well, closer to home, a special ceremony today paying tribute to 4 fallen Ontario police officers. Family members and dignitaries, including the Premier, laying wreaths at the annual event at Queen's Park. Sergeant Eric Mueller died last May while he was responding to a shooting east of Ottawa just days later. Detective Constable Stephen Tourangeau was killed in a crash near Woodstock. The ceremony came to a close with thousands of officers marching together along Queen's Park Crescent. There were also 2 historical additions to the wall, an officer who died in 1928 and 1938. Sophia joining us with our first look at the forecast. Turned out to be a pretty rainy weekend.
Shannon, yeah, we actually got a bit of clearing and some late day sunshine, especially in the southwestern portion of the province. Murphy's Law, though, right at the end of the weekend. And it was a gloomy, rainy, cloudy weekend into the overnight period, high single digits. Northwest flow still with us, but that high pressure will move into the overnight period and clear us out. Beautiful southerly flow, both for Monday and Tuesday. Plenty of sunshine sticks around for most of Tuesday. Dare I say, best day of the upcoming work week. Highs in the low 20s right across the board. And then the cloud cover moves into the afternoon period and into the overnight, some showers. Perfect timing, though. Overnight rain to water the grass. You could have a few rumbles of thunder into the overnight period into the southwestern portion of the province. Best time for it to come, though. It's this big low pressure system we've been watching in the prairies. It makes its way to us overnight Tuesday, and by Wednesday, some of you will be in the warm sector. I'll tell you in the long range what this could do to the potential of a humidex and even some warmer temperatures for a select few. But until then, Monday morning, you wake up to head to work, to school, high single digits, a little bit of cloud cover, and then mainly sunny Monday afternoon. Daytime highs are a couple degrees above seasonal and glorious sunny skies. I'll have more for you later in the show. Shannon?
Thanks, Sophia.
It was a heartbreak. I couldn't believe it. I felt like we controlled and dominated pretty much all of that game.
I think we're cursed. We're just cursed in general.
It's the same stuff, you know? I don't know where we go from this.
Devastation, despair, disappointment, uncertainty, just some of the emotions going through the hearts and minds of Leafs fans after that Game 7 loss to Boston, the nail-biter game going into overtime to end the Leafs season in the most dramatic way possible. Philip Lee-Shannock unpacks it all for us.
And then there were two. The Toronto Maple Leafs lost a nail-biter Saturday night to their longtime rivals, the Boston Bruins, a crushing defeat in overtime, leaving the Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers in the hunt for the Stanley Cup. Toronto's drought now extended to 57 years. By now, fans are stunned, sad, but not surprised.
I'm still having a hard time processing it. I think we're cursed. We're just cursed in general.
A Canadian team hasn't won a Stanley Cup in 31 years. Of the 4 Canadian teams that made it to the playoffs, Toronto and Winnipeg both made first-round exits, leaving Vancouver and Edmonton.
They're playing each other, and the bad news is one of them is going to be gone. The good news is one of them is going to be moving on to the conference final and theoretically have a 1-4 shot at ending this decades-long drought.
It's the third time the Oilers and Canucks have met in the playoffs. They first met in 1986. The last time in 1992, Edmonton came out on top. Fans of both teams are already gearing up for a fight. The premiers of Alberta and BC are on the bandwagon. They've got a bet that involves the loser wearing the other team's jersey.
There's going to be a lot of back and forth between these two fan bases. It's not often we get two Canadian teams going up against each other in the postseason, especially in the later rounds.
The puck drops in Vancouver this week. Philip Lee-Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
Still hurts. Okay, Toronto hockey fans, you still have a hometown team to cheer for in the Professional Women's Hockey League. Tonight marking the final game of the season with a Battle of Ontario.
Natalie Spooner shoots. That one stopped Miller with a backhand. Another, they score!
Okay, Toronto had already clinched the first seed in the playoffs. For Ottawa, meanwhile, it was win or go home. Unfortunately for Ottawa, they ended up losing the game to Toronto 5-2. With the loss, they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. Up next for Toronto, they will choose who to play in their first round matchup, picking between the 3rd and 4th ranked teams. As we've been reporting, pro-Palestinian encampments are being set up at major universities across the country. Each demonstration has its own specific demands, but common among them is that schools divest assets that support Israel. Tyler Cheese takes a closer look.
Disclose, divest, we will not stop, we will not rest.
Student protesters at the University of Toronto and other universities across the country are calling on their educational institutions to divest assets that support Israel. But what does that mean? This University of Toronto faculty member who's spent time supporting the students explains.
They want to see the university's $4 billion endowment divested from any companies, capital assets, etc., that may be complicit in the ongoing apartheid policies of the State of Israel, as well as enabling the ongoing genocidal war against the people of Gaza.
Calling for divestment is not a new tactic. In the 1970s, students pushed for similar action over South Africa's policy of apartheid for the segregation of white and non-white people. And more recently, Canadian students have also pushed universities to sell off fossil fuel holdings.
This is a legitimate strategy, and there is no time that this is more relevant and more necessary than right now.
But how effective the strategy will be in this case is still up in the air.
First kind of look, not likely, but I think the more the pressure, I mean, this is opening. The fact that we can even have that these universities say, well, let's look at this. Okay, well, now the gate's a little bit open.
As for whether or not students have the legal right to protest on university property,
most publicly funded universities in Canada would consider their property to be private. And generally speaking, that is reflected in the case law.
University administrations have warned students they're on private property and may face trespassing charges. But questions about this have been raised before.
And one of the issues that came up was whether or not the charter applied to these publicly funded universities. And there is a bit of a split in approach between the different provinces.
Provincial courts in both Ontario and British Columbia have previously ruled the Charter of Rights and Freedoms does not apply when a university responds to expression on campus. But experts say the current protests may challenge that.
We actually will need the Supreme Court of Canada to kind of say, hey, this is the law, and all of you guys have to be consistent, because right now it's confusing.
He's advising university administrations to be careful about how they respond to these protests, adding any instances of violence or hate speech should be addressed on a case-by-case basis and not be used to characterize the larger movement. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto's top doctor says drug decriminalization is needed to fight the opioid epidemic. The city put in a request with the federal government 2 years ago, but now that request is uncertain after BC rolled back part of its program.
Addiction is, at its core, a health issue, not a criminal issue. So we put in that request in 2022. We put in some follow-up information in 2023. And we continue to have regular conversations with our colleagues at Health Canada. So we're trying to adopt a fulsome approach to this issue of addiction, which is a health issue. And note that the same approach has been actually spoken about and advocated for by people like the Chief Public Health Officer of Canada, like the Chief Medical Officer of Health of Ontario. Complex health issue demands a complex and fulsome response.
Toronto's proposal includes all drugs with no limits to possession. It would also apply to minors. The Prime Minister recently said, quote, Toronto had no active application, suggesting it needs provincial support, which seems unlikely.
You got to be kidding me. Like letting people do cocaine and crack and heroin, you got to be kidding me. I will fight this tooth and nail.
Health Canada says about 22 people died per day from suspected toxic drug overdoses in the first 9 months of last year. The OPP say they're cracking down on drinking and driving in the GTA and Hamilton area. Now, no matter the reason drivers are pulled over, they'll be asked for a breath sample.
So I demand that you provide a sample of your breath into this approved screening device to enable a proper analysis of your breath to be made, and that you copy me now for this purpose. Do you understand? Yep. Okay. Do you just mind holding that for me? So here's the mouthpiece here. Get that on. It's like a breathalyzer? Yeah.
Since 2018, police have used their discretion to test drivers without suspicion. Well, some applaud the move. Others say it violates the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
You know, we could live in a society where the police could walk into your apartment at any time and rummage through your belongings, or, flag you down on the street and say, open your pockets. And maybe there would be one or two or more crimes that are detected as a result. But that's a society that's not free and democratic. And
the OPP say 51 people died on Ontario highways last year in crashes where alcohol or drugs were a factor. A local Toronto restaurant is in the spotlight after being caught in the middle of a feud between two of hip-hop's biggest stars, Kendrick Lamar and Drake. We caught up with some customers checking out the spot that's been name-dropped and featured in a music video.
Went to Genius, I checked it, and then I saw that it was in Chinatown in Toronto. I was like, wow, this is actually crazy. And people are actually coming here because of Kendrick in Drake's city is actually like, it just shows the influence that he has.
We actually came here like the first hour just to avoid the lines, and a couple minutes a while ago, there was a line outside the door.
As much as people want one person like Drake or Kendrick to win, I think it's good that we're supporting businesses like this, and then they'll be winning no matter what.
Kendrick and Drake have been going back and forth, releasing diss tracks and taking part in social media antics over the past couple of weeks. The Spadina restaurant, New Hoking, was mentioned by Kendrick in Euphoria. After the release, positive Google reviews of the restaurant surged. Drake responded by filming the music video for Family Matters at the same spot, also putting the owner in some serious bling. Safina joining us now with our full look at the forecast with promises of sunshine on the way.
Yeah, Shannon, the week starts off strong and then, tapers off. Should we start with the strong start, though? Monday, high teens, even some low 20s across the region. Plenty of sunshine continues for Tuesday. I'm calling it the best day of the week. This is the day to book your golf tee time and get out and enjoy. Low 20s right across the board. It's Tuesday afternoon and evening that clouds move in and rain showers come into the overnight. Perfect timing, though, as we mentioned, for that overnight grass watering. You'll get the rain at the same time in places like Windsor and in Thunder Bay with this long cold front stretching up towards the north and to the west. Maybe even a few rumbles of thunder, as we mentioned, in southwestern Ontario. And depending on how fast we clear on Wednesday, some of you will end up in this nice warm sector and could actually get some nice dry heat clearing and maybe even a little bit of a humidex come Wednesday afternoon. Take your eye line down to Windsor there, 26, feeling like 28. You won't get that clearing as early in places like the GTA, just around the low 20s, no humidex, and only into the mid-teens for your Wednesday afternoon in the nation's capital region. We stay mostly cloudy into Thursday, maybe still a few morning showers, and then let's set our attention to next weekend. Very special day for us on Sunday, Shannon. It's Mother's Day for all the other moms out there as well. And I don't have great news. It looks like we're firmly rooted in a real troughing pattern that usually means cooler and wetter weather. But it's a perfect excuse to get in, cuddle with mom, make her a nice breakfast in bed and all those handmade crafts. And things could change. We may be blessed with a Mother's Day gift and some more sunnier weather to boot. Shannon?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take brunch, a mimosa, maybe a little spa action too. Thanks, Sophia. That's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for being here with us. Before we go, you're looking at the finish line at the Toronto Marathon. Thousands of runners from more than 50 countries pounding the pavement, braving the rain. Since the race started in 1955, runners and walkers have raised more than $8 million for the Princess Margaret Foundation. Thanks so much for being here with us. We'll see you again soon next week.